Call to order the meeting of the Franklin Tourism Commission and take roll call. Ed Holfer. Here. Margaret Wesner.
Here.
Mark Wiley.
Here.
Moving on, looking at our agenda, the citizen comment period, it is now o'clock. And we would like to open the citizen comment period. We're using the agenda line item for Engage Franklin. So are there any citizen comments during this period?
You want us to go separately, right?
We do have Engage Franklin as an agenda line item, so we can item number 6. So, seeing no or hearing no citizen comments, I'd like to close the citizen comment period at 3. Item number 3, draft minutes approval, the meeting minutes of our June 21st commission meeting. Copy of those minutes are in your packet.
If there's no changes, I would move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second from Barbara. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Election of some vacant offices in the tourism. So, John, with your help, we know that chair position is open. Potentially vice chair because that is currently occupied, and then secretary and secretary treasurer.
So we just need to open the floor for nominations.
Okay. Open the floor for nominations. Should we start with, based on the way this might work,
For chair first.
for chair and work our way down?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Lance Schaefer as chair.
I second.
Ask if there's any more nominations 3 times.
All right. Any more nominations for the office of chairperson? Any other nominations for chair? One last request for nominations for chair. Those nominations for chairperson. Go right to voting on that position. All right. So, all those in favor of electing Lance Schaefer in the position of chair person, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Now the vice chair seat's open.
So that does, my position, vice chair, is open. So I'd like to open nominations for the vice chair position.
You nominate somebody that's absent?
That's typically the best option.
Yes, it is.
It's the most popular one, at least.
I'd like to nominate Jeff.
I would second that.
Kersky's been nominated. Are there any other call for nomination second time? Anyone else for the vice chair? Final request for nominations on vice chair. All right, let's close the nominations for vice chair and move to voting. All those in favor of Jeff Kudersky for position of vice chair, say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right. Our vice chair and secretary treasurer.
Still filled.
Still filled. Mark, would you like to look here?
I'm fine. I'm fine staying up.
No abdications
No,
pending.
exactly. That's good. I just didn't want him to make a
Make a
rush.
dash for it.
No,
Thank you.
we'll talk later about age. How that fits.
Okay. Right. All right, moving on from the election of officers. Item number 5, the Car Collective Tourism Report. And again, we have a copy of that report in the packet.
I asked you all to summarize it in one page. Yeah, that. You have, I looked, I only brought one printed copy from Grit.
They all
Yeah,
have
we
a copy
all
of the
have
report.
Great.
I didn't print out a deep dive. I figured if you wanted that, it's in here.
Could we invite the other people here to come to the table so they can see that?
Sure.
Yeah,
Turn around.
that would be a great idea.
Grab a rolling chair. Another one over here if you'd like. We're good enough. Okay.
Thank you for having me. Do you want to set this up, or should I just get into it?
I think you should.
Like, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. Good evening to all of you. And so, yeah, I appreciate this opportunity to present tonight, but also the opportunity given to Carl Collective, me and my team to do this project. I hope it brought value to you all. I think it will. I think we'll go through and show how it will. There's a lot in here, right? Obviously, it's I believe just these 2 documents alone are 36 pages. And there's other appendices and so on. To me, it was a lot of work, but I think it was a learning experience, and honestly, it was a labor of love. We enjoyed really getting to know people, the businesses, the organizations, you all, things that make Franklin, and the things that maybe people don't even think about make Franklin. So I think we'll talk about some of those too. But falling in love with Franklin here, you gotta be careful. He's a South Milwaukee guy, but it's telling this story. I think it's in the end, it's a great story, and we'll talk about that. One that's being told in some ways, maybe it could be told even better. I think will be through some of the work that's happening. Sure. Again, the goal tonight is really to provide top line review of this. If you want me to stop and discuss any of these points in more detail, just stop me and do that. It's obviously all in there. I basically in a lot of ways, took the headings and want to just kind of go through that way. That's what this is. So there's really no new information in here that's not in there. It's just a way to present it. Again, I thought, we wanted to make sure we knew what we restate again, kind of what we were asked and agreed to do. I think we delivered on that. Hopefully, can be useful as you make decisions. I think it's the key part, right? I think it wouldn't be any good unless you can use it both in your work as a commission and engages work in others. I think hopefully that accomplishes that goal. Our process, again, I think we went above and outside of our scope to do more because I think we needed to. I'm glad we did because they really, I think, created a really complete report that I felt very proud of. And it was really, so obviously the data points, the focus groups, we thank you for your support of those and attendance for some of you, input. We online survey, which we had not planned to do, but glad in the end we did do. And also a number of one-on-one interviews. I used to be a journalist. It was actually kind of fun. I remember getting back and it kind of felt like it's back in the game again, talking to people about their story, hearing what their thoughts are, and also importantly how these stakeholders, how they feel about how they fit in what's going on in Franklin, and importantly, just gathering information I'm not sure that people always knew, even inside this room. Hopefully that came through in this report as well. Final report delivers all this. This is the key buckets of information that was in what you have online and in the final report folder. This was actually, again, verbatim from the front of the report. I thought this was I wrote this in a way that, almost to me felt like a statement of who we are, like almost like this is our flag in the ground of like what, from a tourism perspective, kind of what Franklin is and can be. And so this is a bigger context of kind of what we think is brought to life in the next number of pages, the next number of slides on this document. Again, this is the last sentence of it. So, we think, and I think it's clear from what's in the report, the idea of just you're ready and already are, but in a lot of ways ready to capture even more than your fair share of growth and opportunity when it comes to tourism in the region. not just the county, I'd say the region even broader. So I would, to me, I think that became, the more we dove into this, the more we came to understand this is really real, and it's not just a statement. I mean, it is backed up by fact, and it's all in that report. And I think one other point about this too, I think, and this came up in discussions on our team, and that I think the idea of the assets and venues, I mean, Franklin on its own, I think is as good as its assets and venues. I think any community is like that. Unless you have a name like the Dells, but even that's a collection of assets and venues. Without those things, what is the Dells, right? And to me, like, I think that's an important thing to note here is that what you have here is pretty darn special. I think it comes to life in there. People are seeing that every day, and the numbers show it, the data shows it, but it's an important note. And these are all in here. I just wanted to some of the data, and this actually, well, I appreciate the work because honestly, we're able, we're a team of both industry professionals and students, so we're a unique firm, a partnership with Marquette University. In this way, we had our student team touch this, so they led the focus groups, they did the graphics, they helped in interviews, in the survey. So in almost every part of this, our students played a role in this. This reminded me of that of the graphics, and I think that too. When I say thank you, I thank you on their behalf. And so this is data that already exists. I thought was an interesting context setter, and the both state data. Both again, it answers some of the questions like how do they spend their money, when, and also these trends I should point out really mirror at Milwaukee County level too. I don't have that in here, but again, you had this kind of dip obviously for COVID and then kind of rebound to pre-COVID levels and continued growth. Thought this was interesting. I mean, I think this is one we recreated as well. This is the region for Visit Milwaukee, but again, where are people coming from? And we have some of that level of data from Franklin Attractions, but I think it's hard to get that stuff right. I mean, I think this is a good way to understand, at least at a county region level, metropolitan area level, the where piece I think is really interesting. Good context setter. So again, we're happy to provide that, but really wanted to dive into the insights that we hope were insightful for you all. So dive into this here. So look, I can dive into this any level you'd like, but I think it's clear sports tourism drives the bus, and that's a good thing. I think it's not just the Rock. Certainly the Rock is a huge part of it. I think the data shows it's plenty more than just the Rock. But you've got a really, really strong story around sports, youth sports, but not just youth sports. And that's a huge opportunity for Franklin attracting visitors, in attracting overnight stays, attracting even obviously as a source of use just for current residents. But I think the sports story is incredibly strong, and it's obviously it's an overnight stay story too. I mean, I think hotels we'll talk about later. It's a story of certainly business travel in a lot of ways during the week, but sports at other times. It starts with Ballpark Commons, the Rock, but it's more than that. And it talks about it here. Some of the numbers are just pretty staggering, right? And they get into the six figures here, and just and the Ballpark Commons provided us was really significant too. I think that report is in there, and that just we're literally talking about millions at that point. So to me, some of that's inexact science, right? It's cell phone data. But in the end, it's amazing, even if it's half that. But it's not. It's real. And to me, it showed a lot about just the impact of the Rock, but also the parks data was really impressive too. And they did their own. They've done their own cell phone data. They have their own obviously paid usage numbers and things. It's all reflected in here. But again, it's sports really drive train in our view, and again, we think that's a good thing. We work as a firm with Overland Park, Kansas. I think I mentioned that, and they're also very much focused on youth sports. We're telling their story right now as part of a campaign, and it's a lot of it's about you're here for soccer, well, do this other stuff, but it often starts with youth sports, and I think you have that. I'm super glad to hear that you've reached out and engaged Franklin's level with partners to connect around attracting operators and leaders of tournaments. that's, I think, a huge opportunity beyond just inviting teams and so on. But the data doesn't lie here. But again, it's more than just the rock. And is there any question on this piece? I think it's such an important one. I'll take a pause here and see from what you saw in this document or anything surprise you in this.
My only comment would be, I think that, and I've read the report, and it anecdotally it supports some of the anecdotes that we've used in tourism. So I think, and I appreciate that. So
I hope it's good that the data is there, right? I mean, somebody just took asking. I think it's one of the more eye-opening pieces was the first focus group we had when Freddie was there from Croatian Soccer Club. And just hearing the sheer volume of visitors, they were attracting a lot of overnight visitors for these tournaments, just for soccer, and then obviously Croatian Fest, et cetera, et cetera. So, better get your Board of Zoning meeting, John. You want to go? But I think that was an eye-opening piece. Like, it's again, the Rock was impressive and much even more significant than I thought it might be, based on the numbers. But other parts too, the parks and what they bring, golfing, et cetera, but also the soccer piece, Croatian alone, just a really incredible story there. I think that was told to a degree, but maybe a little bit untold. Yeah, obviously, you had the All-Star game. Again, the Rock is so complex too, right? So, and the Ballpark Commons, it's so many pieces that are tied to sports, and it's not just baseball tournaments. It's Lux Golf, which was we dabbled in a bit. We talked to the manager as well before one of our focus groups, and that has really good potential. Not necessarily overnight stays, but certainly as part of, and as we talk about, this next slide is a golf destination. Can it be packaged in a way like that? So we talk about golf in here as well. So, and we think, and in fact, we'd meant to include golf more. We actually had some good insights around golf on the sports side of things, and just that alone was really eye-opening for us. And I'm so glad we had a chance, connect with the county and understand a little bit of numbers at Whitnall and Oakwood and a little bit about Lux. But I think the coolest interview I did was one we did at the very last minute, because I'm like, we got to talk to these guys. I'm talking to Tuckaway Country Club. And understanding that while it's a private club, you can't play that course. Maybe you are some members here, but generally you can't play that course. It is a tourism attraction. Specifically, it brings in tournaments. It brings in folks for that reason, visitors. But also 2026 it'll bring in the state open. It's a big deal. And I didn't know that. I don't know if you all knew that. I was surprised to hear that, but they're excited about bringing that here. So it won't be the level it was, right, when you had the Greater Milwaukee Open here, which was the tourism mecca, I assume, of Franklin back then. But here you'll have a destination, a golf outing, golf tournament coming to the city again at Tuckaway Country Club. So I'd say don't forget and sleep on things like that. I think that was intriguing to find out and interesting. And they're very willing to talk. I mean, I just took one email, and also the next day I'm talking to the executive director. They're very open and willing to embrace. They understand they need to embrace it.
Did the county ever relate what the results were from tournaments they used to host? As if they were money losers or winners, or
like the larger tournaments at Whitnall and Oakwood, you mean? Or
right?
I did not ask about that.
Well, I just was wondering, when you're talking about, attracting visitors, and
yeah, they gave
that's all.
They gave a breakdown of just sheer numbers. I think it is worth exploring more, kind of how those numbers happened. Right? Is it mostly duffers like me getting out twice a year to play Whitnall just for fun with your friends, or is it tournaments bringing? We didn't dive a ton into that, but I think it could be worth exploring, because that's obviously the how and the when of tourism matters, right? If you're getting a large group of people on a weekend, that are mostly out of town, that has implications beyond just me deciding to drive to South Milwaukee to play golf. We did not ask that question.
It's a
It's a good one to ask, though. I think there's some other. This is only hopefully my one takeaway. I hope is this is only the start. I think this is something that is at one point in time discovery that honestly should be regular to some degree with commission with Engage, just to understand what's going on out there. I think it's hopefully a good way that says at this point in time, here's what's happening. Parks. I love parks, and Franklin should love its parks because it honestly is, I'm gonna say reliant, but connected to its parks as much or more than any community in the county, and that's a good thing. It's pretty amazing what the parks bring in as far as visitors, overnight visitors, and otherwise. I think, but certainly just the traffic that comes through the parks, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I mentioned it here too. The outdoor beer opportunity, and if you just thinking in terms of like, as you talk about how to talk about the city as Engage Franklin as a commission, like packaging this, maybe unique ways to think about Franklin as a golf destination, Franklin for our outdoor spaces, not just one-off things here and there, but there's a storyline that unites us. Outdoor beer. I'm not sure there's a better outdoor beer city in the region right now as far as, temporary beer gardens, permanent beer gardens, things like that. That's interesting. And while that alone may not attract a head in a bed, it's certainly part of the overall story. Same with the parks. But the parks we think are attracting overnight stays, but certainly attracting visitors. We're told that. China Lights, talk about that event in a second. Even just the parks themselves, I mean, Burnham Botanical Gardens is pretty amazing. Their impact and the numbers and data that came there. We're a nature center, things like that. We kind of knew about these things, obviously, but to see them in totality, but also as a group, was really impressive to us as well. And also the For All Seasons piece. It's not just a spring, summer enterprise at the Rock or at the rest of the venues and attractions in the city. There are thousands. I mean, I got an email from Joe at County Parks after I submitted this report about impacts of things like downhill skiing that make it, and we certainly can. It could be significant, right? You could now are they had some beds, maybe not. But visitors to the city for these outdoor all-season sports, it's a real thing. I mean, certainly the snow park of the Rock is a big deal, and I think will grow in its reach. But it's not just that group. Special events. I think we all knew what they were. I was surprised at the number, honestly, the volume of visitors that come through. And it's a mix, again, of people, I think, staying overnight. A lot of people maybe not, but some do. And I hear of buses. I hear of overnight stays being driven by this. So to me, the events are significant. And honestly, an event schedule that Franklin has that pretty unmatched in the area, region. I think you should be proud of it. And honestly, it's worth thinking about in totality. All the things that are going on through the parks, through the Rock, through other opportunities. It's pretty cool. And you've got, obviously, China Lights coming back this fall. You've got the Enchanted North Pole. The Enchant Christmas events can be pretty amazing. Excited about that one. You should be too. They advertise 300,000 people potentially. So to me, like that could be really significant for the city and just a really unique attraction. But obviously other events too. I mentioned Croatian Fest, talking to Freddie and others, that's attracting folks. Obviously the significant events that are just happening all the time at the Rock alone. St. Martin's Fair. We didn't dive into that one. I kind of wish we had. I think that's actually a pretty good attraction as well, even for maybe overnight visitors too. But there's attractions you may not even think of, but packaging those together, we think, is another strong selling point. Franklin is a real destination for really cool special events. And they certainly are impacting the work that Engage will do and the work that the Commission's looking at. Hidden Tourism was really cool. I always enjoy this part of efforts like this when I was a reporter, all of that, is they get a chance to kind of say, oh, wow, I had no idea. Now, maybe you all didn't, but I didn't. Yeah, we knew about Kayla's Playground, but I think the idea of holistically looking at accessibility as an interesting selling point for Franklin. There's several other examples in here with Kayla's, the Botanical Gardens, the Little League, Ware Nature Center, where like there is a concerted effort underway to be friendly to those with disability, the accessibility piece, attracting visitors that way. The wedding piece, obviously driving overnight stays and visits. Franklin's a wedding destination. We knew about Conservancy was really interesting and a really hidden destination, not just for weddings, but as an attraction in a lot of ways. So we were appreciative of Susan talking to us and sharing their report, which is also in there, but also understanding that, yeah, that's not just a one-off attraction of people wanting to enjoy nature's beauty. And there's not a small number of people that look to do it. Also as a smaller wedding event venue. Obviously, the Polish Center, the Rock as a wedding venue, Vernon Botanical Gardens, you can just see the data alone. It's pretty significant. Now, it's not huge. I mean, but there's talking, these capacities are, Verner's got 400, the Rock is 225, Polish Center's 300, and any given weekend, all three of them might be full. So it's something to think about where, you've gone to weddings. You'll take the family, stay overnight a lot of times. Certainly travel to do it. Franklin as that destination is something to be thinking about as well. And how do you maybe, again, take this data and use it in that way to frame a story? So we hope this helps in that. Any questions in the last couple slides? Comments, surprises, concerns? Disagree with me too. But hopefully, are you getting? Hopefully, this is some not just a rehashing of old information. Hopefully, you all are getting maybe learning something new and/or thinking of it maybe in a different way. And I think that's kind of what we want to do here. Other insights, performing arts. I think it's a growth opportunity. It's really good. Learn about the 40 Theater Company. I'd like to learn more about the Southwestern Suburban Symphony. I wondered where that's headed. We didn't have a chance to connect with them. But I think Theater Company is a really intriguing opportunity for tourism in this area. And, the Sabre Center is a really nice venue, too. I think that is well regarded. And so I think there's this idea of the arts being more of a potential opportunity for tourism, but I think growing. And Franklin has a way, has the goods right now, and I think if there's an investment made, or at least a concerted effort made to really try to talk about them more and lift them up, I think, as Brenda Dodge said, right, it's in addition to all the great sports stuff, I would encourage a balance. There's a lot of great sports stuff, but I think the arts have a chance here too, and there's a good story being told there that may not even be known as much. We talk about business travel quite a bit. Did quite a bit of work in this area. And while it's not tourism, right, we certainly went there because we wanted to get a sense of heads and beds, get a sense of who's visiting the city, and also when they're here, what are they doing. We did a pretty exhaustive look at that. So we did, and thankfully we had about 10 to 12 responses to our survey, got at least a sense of who are some of the bigger players in the business travel space that's talked about in that document. You can see them in here. I think that's only going to grow as you talk about Saputo Cheese and Vintage Cocoa and other companies coming to the city that are international in scope, potentially that are, by their definition, going to attract out-of-town visitors to Franklin for business. And the hotels back this up, right? I mean, it was all about, and we're thankful for Jeff, and we're thankful for the Jeff Lance, your team. Thank you for helping and connect with us a couple times. We're thankful for Vicki at Staybridge. We're really open with us with that. I think there's opportunities, excuse me, to dive into more data with STR reports we know you're going to do. We didn't get that in the end, but in the end, the anecdotal information was really helpful. And importantly, too, they said the general feeling was, right, during the week, generally business days. During the weekend, it becomes family, sports, etc. kind of destination. Not surprising. I think where they're coming from is interesting. They may be staying, and even in groups, several times, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6 employees at a time for one company, one construction company, one contractor staying at one hotel, a block of rooms. Sometimes they're coming for stuff in Caledonia or New Berlin because there's really not a lot of opportunities. Even though the hotel market is very underdeveloped, obviously, I think it's good that it's growing. Even the ones that you do have, the significant ones, are attracting stays from not just companies in Franklin too. That comes through in here. I don't want to restate the obvious. You know where your map is, right? So I just thought this was interesting. No one told me this. I just kind of thought about it one night. Maybe I was in the shower. I don't know. But I think Franklin's kind of cool in that you've got this proximity thing going for you that just that a lot of places maybe don't. And it's honestly, it's not that inconceivable of a drive to northern Illinois, west, north. I mean, talk about that in here. I mean, it's something worth considering, especially as bigger events come to the region. You know, I don't know what kind of a player you tried to be when the major golf events are happening here in Hills or up in Kohler. NFL draft's coming to Green Bay. Obviously, northern Chicagoland, things like that. Madison. I mean, those are all hands on deck kinds of opportunities for communities all over the place. The NFL draft, people will be staying in the Milwaukee area, I promise you, for that. Same with some of these larger events. Franklin is very much should be in play as you think about using your proximity advantage. So some of you I may haven't thought about. I certainly did. I just wanted to make sure it was brought up here as I think another insight. So, and also knowing that people don't care where they are. They're sometimes you're just a dot in a map. You're an Airbnb that looks really cool, and I don't know where the city is. And it's just I want to say there's Airbnb. I want to say there's a hotel near the airport. So that matters, and your dot in the map is more advantageous. And I just want to point that out.
When you were talking with the Staybridge, did she mention were people staying there because of the proximity to the airport? Did that come up?
You know,
That was
not as much for there, and I did. It almost feels like a story right in here on pages 11 and 12 and 13 of the supplemental piece of local beach time, but I don't have that up now. But there's a good, and this is all public, so Ask John can get his view. But yeah, there's a pretty good interview, quotes, etc., from both hotel managers about that. I think it was airports seem to be more of Hampton's piece. Partly, I think, because Jeff had a history of the airport, right? He was at an airport hotel first. The Staybridge is different too in that obviously these are people that are staying for 3-4 nights at a time often. And so I was there and I saw it firsthand. I literally was there for an hour and just was taking mental and written notes about who was walking in that door and talking to Vicky. And it was really interesting. I mentioned a few of them here, right? One of them was in town for a road project or roofing project. One's from Kaukauna. One's from a regular that comes from a traveling nurse group. Property managers. I mean, it's really interesting, but they're coming for multiple days from not incredibly far away. So maybe they're not necessarily flying in, as best I could tell. And as was told to me, it's more maybe we're driving here too far to stay to go back every day, or we're going to work here all week and go back home. In one case, like in Kaukauna, Northern Illinois, that kind of thing.
Well, I'm asking because Franklin is such a huge. The number of square miles in our city limits.
You might be the largest.
Top to bottom. I mean,
the largest.
the two hotels that are branded are on the extreme ends. One's far north and the other's about as south as you. So I'm curious how things, what that take was as you were called the southern portion of Franklin. They're down. That area has always been done well.
Well, I think that proximity advantage is much stronger there. I mean, right now, it's so accessible now. The I-94, you've got Elm, you've got just drive straight down 27th. So I think you drive just a little bit to the east, you got another way to connect. So it's a little bit harder. And I drove out here past 76 in Rawson. It's a little bit harder to get to, right? You got to get to Loomis, stoplights. It's not as easy to get to. So I think you're going to get potentially more of that. Well, certainly the multiple night stay, but also your proximity play is maybe best at one of the existing hotels with the Staybridge. So if you look, and I don't want to advise, I'm not a developer, right? I tried to play one on TV. But as you look to attract and build new hotels, which again, I'm not expert in this, but I would say you need many more hotels in you. And that corridor makes a lot of sense. You want to be around the Rock because there's a huge need in and around that area because that's an epicenter. But that proximity piece, if you had a line of high quality hotels on 27th, I think there's an opportunity there. That Staybridge is only just barely cracking right now. That's one. Again, I'm not a developer, but certainly I think this being a citizen, but also talking now with these folks, I think that's real.
Anecdotally.
Please.
So,
Well, yeah, I'll let the chair recognize you. Sorry, Mr. Schaefer. This is a beach.
it's just a small thing, but in recent conversation, I realized that Staybridge doesn't have an airport shuttle either. I think might be a factor, either cause or effect, right? So you'd imagine that clearly it's not that large of a business they would invest in. But then obviously people who proximity to the airport is a decision-making factor where to stay, they'd
Yeah, I mean, it's that's a good point. I didn't think that has to have a shuttle. Does Hampton have a shuttle? Or you share one maybe?
No, the reason I'm smiling is we do have a shuttle. We don't necessarily, we've taken a different view on how to market shuttle. I mean, so it's not as, we've actually downsized our vehicle. So we haul people to and from, but we are also finding, especially during the pandemic, all Uber and Lyft rides and pay for it. But, and that was actually more cost effective handling the transportation piece because it's unpredictable. And we find that people, especially in Milwaukee, larger airport, you would wait for a shuttle for 20 minutes at O'Hare, which is easy, maybe a half hour. You get to MKE and you get to the baggage claim. You're waiting more than 5 or 10 minutes for some shuttle to pick you up. They've already called the Lyft and they lead our shuttle back to the hotel. So, yeah, so it's the frank, it's our market.
I mean, I'll say it too. I was a little surprised at some of the still a bit of competition there, right? Yeah, and of the hotels, and I get it. You're trying to compete for nice. But there was a quote from Jeff that was really strong. I thought I'll bring it out here. Is like we need to work together. There's room for everybody in the market. The more, the merrier. Adding new hotels will make us stronger. We all have a niche. It's all based on preferences and needs of the guests. How you develop your clientele. So I mean, I think he sees the opportunity. I do. Again, I'm an expert in that field, but I think they all can work together, and certainly there's a need for more just in general. I'm glad to hear that. I see that the one's about to open. I believe the boutique one coming. Hopefully more with the new work announced and where the shopping center is maybe too. So, excuse me. I'm gonna grab a cup of water. Now we're really gonna start talking. Take a look at that. Cover it up.
Not typically, unless they actually have like a cabin or something on it, like a licensed cabin.
Thank you. I got my referee. I'm a basketball official. I should have grabbed my water bottle. But, so a key part of what we're doing, and maybe the biggest, although I think as we went into this, I thought the insights piece became really important, and I hope you all see that too. But it really drives this part of it, which we were tasked initially in talking with Sean, the previous chair, of this kind of what we're looking for. And it was a lot of those key messages, audience exploration, but we think we could not have gotten here without all the work we just described and summarized for you. So that's why we spent so much time on that, I think, to get to here. Again, these are words that you can use or not use, but we think capture the bright buckets and the sentiment, maybe even the tone. I don't think we did a ton of work into the tone. When you dive in deeper, and there's a recommendation later, as you look at a marketing campaign and things like that, that's where that stuff, you really start to dive into this. But to me, we think sports event planners, we mentioned sports, would be the key audiences. Again, these are some things that, these are, again, phrases that we've come up with to describe that opportunity. There could be a slogan or two in there, FYI, as you look to advance this work. Either way, we think that is the most important potential audience for you. I'm glad to hear that you're out talking to those folks. I think, but also they already exist, right? So you've got people at the Rock that are planning these events too. But to me, it's like if you're trying to attract a lot of people to this region using venues of Franklin as an epicenter, those are your audiences. Again, you've got all of these opportunities. Again, think holistically of sports, and it's pretty impressive what you can sell to a sports event planner talking to that person. Now, again, there's more in. I didn't want to spend every slide to dive, but while that's one bullet point, there's more in your report. As an example, sports fans, we think there's an opportunity. Just think of all the people that are coming to town or in town for a kids sporting event. Like where are they staying? Where are they eating? What are they doing when they're not playing? That kind of thing. We think that's an interesting way to look at it. It's people that are, maybe I'll drive down the road to go to the Milkman game, but it's more like I'm in town from Indiana, so are 500 people like me. My kid doesn't play for 2 hours. What the hell am I doing? I can hang out at the Rock, which is cool. There's plenty to do there, right? I mean, you could watch other games, but I want to get away for where do I go? So to me, where am I staying? Do we have a hotel pool? All of that. So I think thinking in terms of sports fans, I mentioned have fun with soccer moms and dads, but really it's more than that, right? We were told over and over again, these are families that are coming here for these youth sports events and staying the weekend or things like that. So I think sports fans, the idea of thinking of them holistically as a group could be very interesting. Athletes themselves, again, have a ball in Franklin. Again, it's thinking of pitching and thinking of these holistically, right? So you've got something for every kind of athlete, really. And high-level baseball players in high school to professional baseball to snowboarders, you just name it, right? There's sports fans and athletes we think is really interesting proposition. Obviously, golfers and soccer players and extreme sports and winter fun. We got all that too. And we embrace accessibility with that too. So part of the conversation we think an audience to think about. Light show lovers, really, these are people that are looking for a great special event and maybe are already planning to come here, maybe aren't. But when either one-off talking about events, but importantly, that event calendar and schedule holistically we think is interesting. Taken as a whole, as I said earlier, we think the opportunity for Franklin's events and telling that story is really special and unique to Franklin and unique potentially in the region, certainly for a city your size. Something to be proud of. It's something we think to talk about. So we think that as an audience as well. We think outdoor enthusiasts are part of this too. And you got it's right that I don't know what the data point is, just the sheer size of the amount of open space and green space and parks and it's really impressive. And we like the idea. A lot came up with the idea of having plenty of room for you. We love the outdoors as much as you do, and there's this woodlands, wetlands, prairie, gardens, skiers, snowboarders, hikers, bikers, people that love to be outside all season. Oak Cliff Trail, the Conservancy, etc. There's just so many opportunities to love the outdoors in Franklin. We think another way to go. You talk about audiences, those enthusiasts that are looking for that. Maybe they're staying overnight here, maybe they're not, but certainly they could visit here, and either on a one-off basis or maybe telling a holistic story. Importantly, too, obviously, I don't have it here, but we like the idea like Franklin in the middle of it all, yet far enough away. We started to riff on that a little bit too, where again that proximity piece comes to play, recognizing that there's a lot of folks coming to this region that aren't coming to Franklin. They might very well be staying here, or they might be 15 minutes from here. They might be in downtown Milwaukee, and my convention's over. What am I going to do? Or I don't want to stay in the downtown core tonight. I want to explore. I want to go have a beer at the Umbrella Bar. I want to watch I want to see a baseball game that's not the Brewers. I want to hike a trail. I want to go to beautiful gardens. I've got time. So to me, we think the idea of you're here for this, but you're staying for this. I mentioned the Overland Park example. That's an active ad campaign we're doing. That is exactly that. And I think I may have shown you a video some meetings ago. I looked at that. Here for this. You're here for Kansas. In this case, Kansas City. You're here for Union Station or whatever. You're for a Royals game. Great. Well, stay for the barbecue in Overland Park because you're here. That kind of thing. So we think the Franklin story is partly that too. You're not doing anything necessarily to attract these people overtly. They're coming here anyway. How do you get them to stay here, eat here, play here? If you think through key audiences and messages that hit those people, we think of that group as really important. And obviously business travelers, which we mentioned. Get the companies that host them, so that becomes an audience, right? So your existing companies that host these folks, the ones I mentioned in the report that are maybe out just outside your borders. There's a Mannheim auto auction I didn't even know about. I think Jeff said they host quite a few people at the Hampton Auction Eve. things like that. Like you're in town for, they're attracting business travel. It might be Crohn's, it might be something outside of Franklin, but trying to talk to those companies, no matter where they're at, and making sure they understand, maybe you're not even staying here, but you could stay here. You could eat and play here as well. We think that's an interesting approach. That's an audience for you to think about. But honestly, if you haven't talked to some of your larger companies that are bringing in business travel, we talk about some in here, do that. If you haven't thought outside your borders and drawn a 10-mile circle to others that maybe bringing in business travel that might be interested in Franklin, even beyond that, even if you're in Milwaukee, again, you're not that far away. That proximity advantage, I think it's overlooked. Well, you feel far away, and that's part of the charm of Franklin. You're not. 10, 15 minutes in some parts of Franklin, in downtown. That's a look at audience key messages. Any thoughts on these? We hit, miss? Happy to dive into that. But I'll say, I think this stuff was driven by the groundwork that we did to get here. We didn't start here, we ended here. That's important to know.
Eric, in all your conversations, get-togethers, our focus groups, did the Gateway District
word never came up, honestly. Not once. Is that the Airport Business Improvement District? Yeah. At South Milwaukee, when I was a mayor, I was wondering that
all the way
myself.
up to Franklin?
Yeah.
And I haven't heard much about it, but I mean, I'm just wondering in all the conversations, if anyone may.
No, it could be. It's an interesting opportunity, though. I mean, again, I like the idea of bids. I mean, South Milwaukee, speaking as a former mayor, I mean, we don't have one. I think we should. I wouldn't prescribe one for Franklin necessarily, but you have a critical mass eventually of businesses in a certain area. I think South Milwaukee's downtown would benefit from one. I do believe in them, and I think that it always has potential. I was part of, I remember going to some Gateway events early on. Really impressed about thinking of the airport that way. It was like the Aerotropolis idea, all of that, which is really intriguing. Never really went anywhere, as best I could tell. I mean, it's still there, but I don't remember. It's not a major conversation piece, as best I can tell. I don't want to denigrate it. Any other thoughts? I'm happy to engage. Engage as a joke for you. And hopefully you're going to be using this stuff, right? I mean, in the end, I think it's we're here to help you all, but help the work here that's happening right now and telling this story. We're excited to play a role in that with it. Additional recommendations. These are somewhat more general. Some of it's already happening. So like show off your assets. Sorry for the plan awards, but I think that's already happening through some of the work that is happening with Engage. We still believe, and I having a plan, I haven't seen necessarily there's a real strategic plan. There's a lot of work happening. I'd suggest that it's not too late, and it's not necessarily a huge heavy lift. This can inform it, but I'm a big believer in plans and having a plan, working the plan. Again, I think of that and we've already done a lot of this work, right? It's thinking through who, what, when, like the audiences, the tactics, but thinking through that high level strategy piece and then acting on it. So this is some of that. I think it goes quite a bit maybe towards that. It's not that though, but I think it's something to think about. And even as you build websites and visitor guides and you go out into the world to tell your story to audiences and whatever, there's still time to do this. You're early enough in your renewed focus here on tourism we think to do this the way we would suggest doing it. And again, it's already almost there, but it's not quite there. We weren't tasked with that. I still think it's an important piece. It doesn't have to happen. I just think it's something that we want to point out. We think resident ambassadors is really important. I think Barb had a great comment, and Barbara had a great comment about residents need to see tourism as an important part of their community. Your residents are going to be your best public relations people. And if you're providing wonderful experiences for them, they're engaged, they are stakeholders. And that means doing things for them that aren't just for people who are coming into town, rather people who are already in town. I think we agree with that. And I mean, they're the ones that may book a wedding. They're the ones that might So we think that's part of this story as well, and that we don't want to forget that residents matter too. And that was really glad you brought that up at that meeting. I noted that and circled that in the transcription of that focus group. We think your businesses want to help, and you need to collaborate with them more. So they all said, I mean, the ones we talked to, stakeholders all want to help. They want to obviously drive business to themselves, but they understand the value of joint promotion and just being in this together, like being at the table together. And I think Engage is starting to do some of that work. But when's the last time that Croatian soccer sat down with The Rock, sat down with somebody from the commission, sat down with somebody from the parks? That conversation should happen regularly. So we talk about that too, but it's they want to help, they want to work together. A lot of them, almost all of them, understand the value of that. It lifts all boats. I don't think those necessarily happening right now at the local level. This is something the commission can drive, that Gage can drive, others can drive. But that sense of going to market as one, thinking that way, I think is really important and happening to some degree. But you can force some of those discussions to buy them lunch. All of a sudden, we had 10 people around a table that never sat around a table before. I guarantee you, I'm proud of that. So I think it's something that is hopefully not just the beginning. Working across city lines, I'm glad that you went to that show with Oak Creek, and your ties there make a ton of sense. But Franklin's story is Greendale's story too. Greendale's awesome. I love Greendale. And to me, like, their success in some ways is yours and vice versa. Some of the stuff we talked about, the attractions for Franklin are in Greendale. We noted that. We're not blind. We're not saying all of Whitnall Park is in Franklin. I'm gonna make that clear. Like, don't think we're uninformed there. We know that. We noted that. But it feels that way, and it really, people don't care. Honestly, they have no idea. If I'm across that city line into Hales Corner, they have no idea. So it might as well be Franklin, because most of Whitnall Park and the key parts are in Franklin. At least have a Franklin address. Anyway, either way, we think across city lines is important. Working across city lines is important. And the idea of regionally too, that proximity play is important. While I understand the desire not to necessarily send money to visit Milwaukee, in fact, I support it. Not doing that. I think working with them, not just as a venue like The Rock, I know as a member and active, and finding ways to engage with them as a more holistic tourism enterprise would be interesting. We overseen others that are more local focused groups. I think Mount Pleasant just separated from we overseen Brookfield. These are all within 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes. I don't know how that happens. I'm not an expert there necessarily, but I know there's some of that happen. I know there's trades groups and things that kind of bring everyone together, but overtly working with those broader organizations, not just cities, but the tourism entities. Something we don't know if it's happening. We think it should. Waukesha County. There's apparently 2 in Waukesha. It's confusing. Sometimes who does what to in that space. It's very confusing sometimes. I think even they are confused. So, no, I don't want to bring up a competition idea, but there is some of that, right? So, like, in the end, you're Franklin, and you want to drive overnight stays and visitors and business, and et cetera, to Franklin. Visitors to Franklin. So, in that way, I guess you look at it as maybe a competitive landscape, but you certainly want to know some kind of analysis. What is Brookfield, Berlin, Waukesha? How do you stack up? We didn't do that here. We're commissioned to do that. I think it's something to note. Just don't lose sight of that. And don't lose sight of the world outside your borders, especially when it comes to tourism. Because honestly, the tourists don't care. So you need to know. I think that's maybe happening. I think it could happen more. We also suggest data-driven decisions. We did some of that. Obviously, our work here incorporates quite a bit of data. There's more that's out there. We didn't get STR data. I know you're working to get that. That's awesome to monitor what's happening in hotels alone. Is going to be a huge value add for making decisions. And make decisions on the data. So not just get the data, make decisions based partly on it. Not solely, but partly. Pay attention to those annual reports that come from Visit, from the state tourism body, from the tourism department. Pay attention to those. There's some really good information there, and data and trends, and We captured some of them here, but they're all in our report. They're all online too. But they come out in June-ish for the previous year. Watch for those. They can help you, help detect trends. So even though you're not paying to visit Milwaukee, you can benefit from their information. And there's some good stuff in there. That's where we got some of our charts from and things. So certainly the state stuff and there's some pretty deep dive stuff and very available right now on a website. If you made 3 clicks down if you just Google it. So we also did some work with other kind of national reports too. So there's a ton of data, right? And you're in this industry, you know it. Finding the right data sets, but using them and regularly getting them and using them to make decisions, I think is really important. Local data, I think, maybe some of the data points from the parks and the Rock and the Polish Center were eye-opening. They were for us. Keep asking them for that. Just ask them. How did they do last year at Whitnall Park? How did the golf course do? Get those data points. Just ask them. All you have to do is ask. I'm not sure you have been. We did. Generally, we were happy with it. It was mixed what we got back, but the Rocks was super helpful in getting us some of that. But there's more they can get from them. There's more you can get from the parks. They're a little hesitant. I get it. Everyone is. There was a competitiveness. I get that. And I think with the right ask in the right way for the right use, I think it can't hurt to ask. But we think there's a lot of data out there that's not being tapped that we just scratched the surface. So that's pretty much it. Anything on this slide? Any feedback on what I just said? Let us know.
Well, Eric, I appreciate the time taken to go through this with us.
Of course, yeah. So, just here's just a reminder of some of the folks we talked to, who responded to the survey. These are all either focus groups or interviews, reports. Again, I mentioned some of the stuff we went through. Those are all available. John has those links. Print them off and share them, download them, etc. So, but thank you. Again, this was a really fun project for me and the student team and the broader team. And we're excited to help you do your job better, we hope, and help you to certainly do your job better. And I think this was a learning for us too, and how to go about some of this. It's exciting that we had a chance to do this, and thank you for the opportunity.
To that end, can we share this with Engage Franklin?
Oh, I think it's public, right? I shouldn't ask the chair, but I think it's public.
I was looking at the chair. So.
Yeah, I think it should be shared.
Okay, that's kind of what we remember. The first slide mentioned we hope Engage Franklin uses this.
Yeah, we started a project like this. That's how we got the Franklin logo. It was a combination city effort, and it was a little more divided maybe or it turned out to be more of a combination project and not as focused maybe on tourism as we had thought. So this is certainly a follow-up to that. So valuable insights and especially the focus group. You said getting folks together that maybe you normally don't talk to.
You've got one at the table here that if you live in Franklin now, the Hotel and Lodging Association. So it's there's partners out there they may not even know about that we kind of uncovered and data points and there's all kinds of data and people talk to stakeholders, but I think leaning into that is really important. Again, thank you, and good luck, and keep us posted. And if you need anything more for us around, delivery of this or something, let us know. I'm glad we might continue with some economic development work, which is awesome. Same with you. If there's something we can advise on that's in here, you want some more information about, maybe we didn't share that was referenced in here, let us know. We want to be to help. We did this to help you all. That'd be good. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll shut this down.
Don't turn it off. Just click out of Outlook. And we have to power down over there. Otherwise, it shuts the computer off. And then anybody who wants to use it later, out of luck.
All right. Our next agenda item is discussion, Engage Franklin board update, and then also I think moving into closed session. So board update first, and then move on from there.
So we have We have given the last draft that we had to the Engage Franklin board, and there's been an extensive review of that. We met a week ago Monday, and there's a number of concerns that we want to talk about. And rather than passing paper back and forth, we felt it was better to have a face-to-face session. With that said, I need to be careful because and I've used this before, I'm tourism commission on one side, and I'm also a member of the Engage Franklin board. So in this discussion, I need to kind of pull back a little bit. I've been careful not to tread. I've been careful to walk this line, and I'll continue to do that. But I think it's important that we get the concerns on the table and talk about those. And some of them are minor concerns, I think. Some are fairly significant. And I think Daryl's going to lead that discussion. And I'll kind of sit back and take notes.
Any other updates, though, during this open session, while we're in open session?
You want to summarize, Laura, what you've done recently?
Sure. I mean, we talked in the past about the different event acquisitions, the success, the things we have going out from the Sports Symposium. So those are all moving along well. Everything heading in the correct direction. The mud run and those types of things. So conversations are still happening. The golf show is signed and sealed, so that one is coming in March. Great anticipated traffic. Frankly, during a period of time when the prior. And then most recently, I just worked. It was our first visitor outreach recently at the All-Star game. So I was in the Hamptons lobby almost all day on Monday, handing out bags and greeting our visitors and giving them a visitor's guide that was very similar to the sports ETA collateral you guys saw. I just had it reworked because it was very inexpensive, already paid for. Had it reworked to be a general visitor's guide instead of sports, and then obviously. So packed those bags up, sent them out, gave them some spotted cows of beef jerky from the outlet, right? And then had a little conversation with everyone about everything there is to see and do. And they're here for 3 days, and you know, if they in their free time, I encourage them to get off campus and explore. And I think it went really well. One of those types of small things that makes a big difference. Or just a small piece of pie of what we.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Daryl to take the lead then, talking about, because we have, like I said, we as the Engage Franklin board have gone through that agreement. I know everybody here has got a copy of the existing draft.
So, question. You want to talk about the items that you're interested
Sure.
in? We all can go into closed session.
I'd be fine going into closed session with them, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I
it's
think that would make
negotiations
sense.
and it's
I think
discussions.
it would-
Okay.
Probably.
Yeah.
No, we're totally
We
fine.
talk to other people at the council.
I think it all makes sense, but yeah, for sure, whatever, that's.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah,
All
that'd
right.
be good. Thanks, sir. Here, send me a final invoice.
Including the focus for food.
That's on tonight's.
Okay, good. Humbly ask for your consideration. It was really good. But yes, I will do that. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
The tourism, do I need to wait till?
You just
first
read
finish.
that.
Please.
I'll close it in a moment, but yeah, just read off the section there that sends us in. You have to take a vote.
The Tourism Commission may enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute and 19.851E to deliberate upon the Franklin Field naming rights agreement between the Franklin Tourism Commission and Milwaukee Milkmen Baseball LLC effective July 1st, 2020, and a proposed tourism entity agreement between the Franklin Tourism Commission and Engage Franklin, the negotiation of provisions and terms, and the investing of public funds in relation thereto for competitive or bargaining reasons, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems.
We move that we enter closed session.
Motion to enter closed session.
Second.
Second, Barbara. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Can I entertain a motion to come back from closed session, open session meeting here?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
Turn to open session at
9:15.
9:15.
Next item, voucher approvals. We have in your packet a couple of vouchers. One for Engage Franklin. And Quarles, right? And then there was the request by our collective for the tourism luncheon.
It was a focus group
Focus group.
over at the Polish Center.
Yeah.
It was quite productive.
All right. We handle this as all three at one time here, or would you rather approve them separately?
Yes,
Yeah,
so it's up to the
Is that, are you okay with?
Okay doing them
have
all.
you had it?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
okay with that too.
But someone would like to make a motion about the approval of all three vouchers?
I move that we approve all of the 3 vouchers in front of us. Should I name them?
I think you should.
Okay, one for Engage Franklin, the other for Quarles, and for, not the Polish Center,
Carl Collective.
Carl, thank you, Carl Collective.
All right. I've got a motion. Second by Mark. All those in favor of approving the 3 vouchers, one to Engage Franklin for $20,000, Quarles for $13.23, and the Carl Collective for $284.41. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, vouchers approved.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bill, thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course. Actually, I'm gonna stick around for a minute after.
All right,
this.
sure. Next meeting.
Scheduled meeting is August 16th.
Very similar. August 16th. I'm hoping it works. Good? Yeah?
Right now.
So, yeah, right
Let's,
now.
let's just do it and see what happens. All right, let's set August 16th at the magical time of 6 p.m. And new business, so I've got adjournment on the agenda.
Move to approve. I'm sorry. Think of something else. Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, do I have a second?
Again, I second.
Second by, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.